My wife left me after getting in shape, and now she wants to come back because she's pregnant with twins. One of them is mine and the other isn't. How is that possible, you ask? Can happen, and it did. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe I just need validation, or maybe I just need to get it out. My life has completely flipped upside down in the past few months, and I'm still trying to process everything. I, 32M, was married to my wife, 33F, for 4 years. We had what I thought was a great marriage. I was madly in love with her, and for the most part we were happy. But in 2022, things started to change. She fell into depression, mostly because of her job. I knew what that felt like. I had been through my own dark phase before we got married. The only thing that pulled me out of it was going to the gym, so I suggested she try the same. At first, she wasn't enthusiastic, but she agreed. We started going together. I couldn't be there as often as I used to because my workload increased after a promotion, but I did my best to support her. She used to be a little chubby, which I loved, but after a few months, the changes in her body became undeniable. She slimmed down, toned up, and for the first time in a long while, she seemed happier, more confident, more alive. I was happy for her. I really was. But then, that confidence started to shift into something else. She began staying out late. First, it was harmless, just a few meetups with friends. Then it became clubbing, house parties, and social events where I wasn't invited. She completely stopped doing her share of household chores, brushing it off as too busy or too tired. And then, one night, I saw her flirting with another man. We were at a social event together, and she was different, bolder, almost like she had forgotten I was even in the room. She laughed at his jokes in a way she hadn't laughed at mine in months. She leaned in close when he spoke, touching his arm casually. It wasn't obvious, but it was enough. Enough for me to know. I confronted her later that night. I told her she was riding high on her new confidence, making rash decisions based on an emotional high. I tried to explain that I understood, because I had once been the same way. Her response? She laughed in my face. She told me I was insecure, that she had settled when she married me and now realized she could do better. That night, something inside me broke. The woman who had once been the sweetest person I knew, the person who I had supported through her darkest days, had completely changed. A month later, she filed for divorce. I didn't fight it. There was nothing left to fight for. We had similar incomes, no kids, and the only shared asset was a joint bank account, which was easy to split. The house was my mother's, so she couldn't touch it. For months, she was just gone. I had no idea where she was, who she was with, or what her life looked like after she walked away. She didn't reach out, not even once, until last week. My phone rang, and I almost didn't pick up when I saw her name. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. She was crying. And the first thing she said? I made a mistake. For months she was just gone. I had no idea where she was, who she was with, or what her life looked like after she walked away. She didn't reach out, not even once, until last week. My phone rang, and I almost didn't pick up when I saw her name. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. She was crying. And the first thing she said? I made a mistake. I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. Can we meet, please? She pleaded. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a quiet cafe the next day. She looked different. Tired, anxious, a shadow of the confident woman who had walked out on me. After an awkward silence, she took a deep breath. I'm pregnant, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I felt a mix of emotions. Shock, confusion, and a flicker of hope. Is it mine? I asked cautiously. She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but there's more, she continued, her eyes welling up with tears. I braced myself. I'm having twins, she said. Before I could react, she added, and they have different fathers. I stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. How is that even possible? I finally managed to ask. She explained that during our separation, she had been with someone else. Unbeknownst to her, she had conceived twins, each with a different father. this rare phenomenon known as heteropaternal superfecundation. While extremely rare in humans, it is possible. I was at a loss for words. The woman I had loved, who had left me claiming she could do better, was now carrying my child, and someone else's. She reached out, touching my hand. "I want us to raise them together," she said softly. I pulled my hand away, emotions swirling inside me. "You made your choice," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked down, tears streaming down her face. "I know I hurt you," she whispered. I stood up, unable to bear the weight of the situation. "I need time to think," I said, turning to leave. As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder how my life had come to this. A twisted reality where the woman I once adored was now the mother of twins with two different fathers. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. The revelation of my wife's pregnancy, with twins fathered by two different men, left me in a state of disbelief and turmoil. I couldn't fathom how our once stable relationship had unraveled into such a complex situation. I sought solace in conversations with close friends and family. Their reactions mirrored my own shock, but they offered unwavering support. My mother, in particular, became a pillar of strength, reminding me to focus on what truly mattered and to take time to process my feelings. One evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, memories of our happier times flooded my mind. The laughter we shared, the dreams we built together. It all seemed like a distant past. Now, faced with the reality of her carrying twins with different fathers, I questioned everything I thought I knew about love and trust. In an attempt to understand the phenomenon better, I delved into research. I learned that heteropaternal superfecundation, while rare, is a documented occurrence. This knowledge, however, did little to ease my inner conflict. The logical part of me understood the science, but my heart grappled with the emotional betrayal. Amidst the chaos, I received a message from her. "I know I've hurt you deeply, and I don't expect forgiveness. But for the sake of our child, can we find a way to navigate this together?" Her words lingered in my mind. The thought of becoming a father was both terrifying and exhilarating. Yet, the circumstances were far from ideal. Could I co-parent with someone who had caused me such pain? Would I be able to separate my feelings for her from my responsibilities as a father? As the weeks passed, I realized that avoiding the situation wasn't an option. I needed to confront my emotions head-on and make decisions that would shape not only my future but also the future of an innocent child. With a heavy heart, I agreed to meet her once more, determined to discuss the path forward with clarity and resolve. After our initial meeting, I hoped for some semblance of peace. Instead, my life spiraled into a nightmare I couldn't escape. It started with incessant phone calls. At first, she called once or twice a day, pleading to talk. But soon, it escalated to dozens of calls at all hours. My phone became a source of dread, buzzing relentlessly with her name flashing on the screen. When I stopped answering, the messages began. Long, rambling voicemails vacillating between apologies and accusations. Texts that started with "I'm sorry" and ended with "you left me no choice." The emotional whiplash was exhausting. One evening, as I sat trying to focus on a book, a loud knock echoed through my apartment. I opened the door to find her standing there, eyes red from crying. "We need to talk," she insisted, pushing past me into the living room. "This isn't appropriate," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Appropriate?" she scoffed. "You think any of this is appropriate? I'm carrying your child." I took a deep breath, trying to maintain composure. "And I've told you I need time." "Time?" she shouted. "While you take your time, I'm here, pregnant and alone." The confrontation was heated, words thrown like daggers. She accused me of abandoning her, of shirking responsibility. I countered with her betrayal, her choices that led us here. The argument reached a fever pitch before she stormed out, leaving me shaken. But the worst was yet to come. A few days later, I received an email from my employer's HR department. Someone had sent them a detailed message accusing me of misconduct, attaching photos of me at social events with friends, twisting innocent interactions into something nefarious. I knew immediately who was behind it. Furious, I confronted her. How could you jeopardize my job? She didn't deny it. I needed to get your attention, she said flatly. By trying to ruin my career? I was incredulous. You left me no choice, she repeated, a phrase that had become her mantra. The harassment didn't stop there. She began showing up at my workplace, causing scenes that left my colleagues whispering. She contacted my friends, spreading lies about our relationship, painting herself as the victim of my supposed cruelty. I felt trapped, my personal and professional life under siege. The woman I once loved had become a relentless force of chaos, her actions unpredictable and destructive. Desperate, I sought legal advice. I was advised to document every interaction, every call, every message. It was a small comfort, a semblance of control in an otherwise uncontrollable situation. As I lay awake at night, the weight of the situation pressing down on me, I couldn't help but wonder how we had descended into this madness. The line between love and hate had blurred, leaving only a tumultuous sea of emotions in its wake. After our last encounter, I hoped for some semblance of peace, but reality proved otherwise. My ex-wife began incessantly calling, leaving numerous voicemails that oscillated between tearful apologies and angry accusations. Each message was a stark reminder of our shattered relationship and her current predicament. One evening, as I attempted to distract myself from the turmoil, a knock echoed through my apartment. Opening the door, I found her standing there, eyes swollen from crying. "We need to talk," she insisted, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "This isn't a good time," I replied, striving to maintain composure. "You don't understand," her voice quivered. "He left me. I'm all alone." A surge of mixed emotions washed over me. Anger, pity, confusion. Her new partner, the father of the other twin, had abandoned her, leaving her vulnerable and desperate. "And what do you expect from me?" I asked, trying to mask the frustration in my tone. "I need your support," she pleaded, "for the sake of our child." I took a deep breath, grappling with the weight of the situation. Despite the betrayal and the chaos that ensued, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was carrying my child. A part of me felt an innate responsibility, a duty to be there for my unborn son or daughter. Yet the wounds were still fresh. Trust had been shattered, and the path to any form of reconciliation seemed insurmountable. "I can't just forget everything that happened," I said, my voice tinged with pain. "I'm not asking you to," she responded softly, "but we need to find a way to move forward. For the baby." The room fell into a heavy silence, both of us lost in our thoughts. The reality was undeniable. We were bound together by the impending arrival of a child, a life that deserved stability and love. "I'll think about it," I finally said, not meeting her gaze. She nodded, wiping away a stray tear. "Thank you." As she left, I felt a profound sense of conflict. The logical part of me screamed to keep my distance, to protect myself from further hurt. But another part, perhaps driven by paternal instinct, urged me to bridge the chasm between us for the sake of our child. That night, sleep eluded me. I wrestled with my emotions, torn between self-preservation and the undeniable responsibility of fatherhood. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but one thing was clear. I needed to make a decision, not just for myself, but for the innocent life that would soon depend on us both. After much contemplation, I decided to invite my ex-wife to move in with me during her pregnancy. Despite the betrayal, I couldn't ignore the fact that she was carrying my child. I felt a deep sense of responsibility to ensure the well-being of my unborn baby. Living together again was challenging. The familiarity of shared spaces clashed with the unresolved issues between us. I couldn't help but wonder if this was her plan all along, to find a way back into my life. Yet, I couldn't stand the thought of her going through this alone. The presence of the other child, a constant reminder of her infidelity, added to my inner turmoil. I struggled with how to approach this innocent life that wasn't mine. Could I accept and care for both children equally? These questions haunted me daily. As the due date approached, we attended prenatal appointments together, trying to present a united front. To outsiders, we might have seemed like a reconciled couple, but internally, I grappled with conflicting emotions. I was 99% certain that being there for my child was the right path, but the unresolved feelings about the other twin left me in a state of constant unease. Now, I find myself turning to you, the reader, seeking your perspective. Did I make the right decision in taking her back into my home? Am I setting myself up for more heartache? Or is this a step toward healing and providing a stable family for my child? The future remains uncertain, and only time will reveal whether this fragile reunion was a mistake or a path to redemption.